Thank you so much for hanging out with us on Revenge of the '90s. I'm Steve. Fabs is here, and we are live streaming. So we're on all of our beautiful, wonderful socials and all that good stuff. And this is episode 160, buddy. So
It's
here we are.
amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I know that's sort of an arbitrary milestone of sorts, but 160 episodes is no joke. And thank you to everybody who is a listener, including you listening right now. I'm speaking directly to you. And I do have some housekeeping. We are nominated for Best Entertainment Podcast in the Cleveland Scene Best of 2024. So, again, if you go to any of our social channels, you'll see like the links and stuff. But you can Google, Cleveland Scene Best of 2024, and you will find it. And so, you can go and do that, and we would very greatly appreciate it. You can also check us out on Substack at revengeofthe90s.substack.com if you're looking for some other juicy movie stuff there that spans all decades. You can check us out there and follow us and all that good stuff. All right. Rate, review, subscribe while you're at it. That gets all the housekeeping out of the way. Here we are talking about The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear from 1991. I'm so glad that we're doing this, not just because we finally get to broach the OJ topic.
Thank God.
Everybody's always hitting us up. They're always saying, when are you going to talk about OJ? When are you going to talk about OJ? I know it was the most important moment of the 20th century. And here we are. We're finally going to do it for you guys. Everybody always wants to know. And, I'm not going to say we know whether or not he's innocent, but we'll just, maybe we'll give you some like clues throughout where you can make your own determination.
Yep.
I'm not saying that Fabs and I have any new evidence or anything, but I'm not saying we don't.
Yeah,
Okay?
I'm not saying that Cato happens to live in our third bedroom and tell me what happened on that night.
Yeah. Not saying it. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it is. I'm not saying it's not.
Yeah.
All right. So this is beautiful because I so greatly love spoof movies. This is like a genre very near and dear to my heart. And it's something that my family and I have bonded over for decades. This is something that, like, when I think about like the sort of seminal moments of childhood, right? In terms of like what are some of the, it's like what are the things that, you bonded with your family on watching that, were formative growing up? What are the things that like all of your family loves that you quote to each other that made you fall in love with movies, or just like you have this wonderful memory of just like being together as a family? And for us, some of the ones that come to mind are like the old like Seinfeld reruns at 6 and 7 on TBS back in the day
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
when we would eat dinner and watch the Seinfeld reruns, and just it would just go in a continuous loop. And I always remember just it was so wonderful to have that time to watch those and just enjoy that together. And then one of the other things was just because for the most part they're pretty age appropriate, even though I almost let my son watch a lot of this. And after watching this, I was like, wow, he should not have seen any of that, but he only saw the beginning. And he laughed when Barbara Bush got her head banged on a table. So I know
Perfect.
he's in good hands.
Yes.
The spoof movies really were the ones for my family and I. It was like Hot Shots was the big one.
Oh, so good.
We love Naked Gun. My mom and I quote Naked Gun to each other just constantly. So for me, that was, very formative. So I have to assume maybe that was similar for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hot Shots. I watched that. Hot Shots Part 2, Spy Hard, all the Naked Guns, um, Airplane.
Oh
Airplane.
yeah.
Airplane. I saw a little bit later on because I didn't like fully understand a lot of the jokes in Airplane. Also, it's pop culture differences, so that's a decade plus prior to the Naked Gun movies. But yeah, this was definitely part of. It was like this and Ace Ventura and John Candy. That was like my That was my syllabus of comedy that my dad and I like shared together.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, very
I
good
like
foundation.
yeah, absolutely. I like Airplane 2 a lot, by the way. Not a lot of people give that one much
It's
credit.
good.
It's good.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
You get the good line of them like because like the space shuttle's hurtling towards the sun, and she's going through all the reasons of like what's going wrong with the thing, and then she says, "And we're out of coffee," and then like everybody panics, and then
Yeah.
there's the scene where William Shatner's on like a video screen, but he's actually just behind a door that he opens.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a really funny gag, but I think too one of the and it's so sad to see kind of like what the spoof parody genre has become. I was thinking about how like the the one thing kind of holding the torch these days for it is the music biopic, where you've got Walk Hard, you've got Pop Star, you've got the Weird Al movie that came out last year.
Yeah. Yeah.
The biopic is like pretty ripe for parody and satire, and I'm glad that it still exists in that form. But the construction of it and what it was 30, 35, 40 years ago is much different and non-existent basically now. It was run into the ground. But it became like this weird bastardized thing where you got those like epic movie and like those
Superhero movie.
horrible pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And
Where they don't really understand what spoofing something actually is, and they're just yeah.
well, not even like, and here's the thing is like what they got completely wrong and what like Naked Gun does so well, what they got so wrong was that, oh, spoof. So that means that we're just gonna like reference stuff and show you like a character from another movie like punching this character or something like that. And
Right.
you're supposed to like that's the joke. Whereas, and that's like the lowest of the low writing, just non-existent writing. You want to talk about like whether or not an AI wrote something, that could be the genesis.
Yes.
But what is so interesting about the Naked Gun movies and some of the other like real high class spoof movie, or I don't even know if I call it spoof, but just like silly, absurdist, maybe like the absurdist genre is because Naked Gun isn't that's not what it is. Like Naked Gun is not a spoof. It's just pure silliness. It's just unrelenting absurdity. And it's the writing that more I love all the like physical gags and stuff, but to me the writing is tremendous. And those are always the things that I remember the most about these three movies are the the witty wordplay and like the silly sort of like misunderstanding of language. Like the two lines that stick out to me a lot from this one, "The Smell of Fear," is when they're doing the investigate. They're at the crime scene, and Ed. Well, Frank goes, "That's the red light district. I wonder why Savage is hanging out down there." And Captain Ed says, "Sex, Frank?" And Frank goes, no, not right now, Ed. We've got work to do." And so I think that's a great line. And then the one that's really just fantastic is when they go to the porn store and Frank is like, "Miss, I'm Lieutenant Frank Drebin, and this is Captain Ed Hawk and Police Squad." And she's got her boobs out and she's like, "Is this some kind of bust?" And Frank goes, "Well, it's very impressive, yes, but we need to ask you a few questions." And
Yeah.
like, those are just like, that's fantastic. That's fantastic writing. And you can get the physical gags that are fun, but this movie is just loaded. All three of them are just loaded with that. You could pick that was two, but you could pick 20 other ones.
Yeah. This movie packs so many jokes into it, and it has a little bit of something for everybody. There's some of my favorites. The bus joke I thought was so good. Um, the he's he's fighting the hitman, and he picks the hitman up, and he does his face where he's like,
Yeah.
and like I just like that was I wasn't expecting it because I hadn't seen this movie in like 20 years, and I laughed for so long. Their sex scene is just crazy in this movie, where they're just doing all these like you just see her holding on to the bars, and the bars of the frame of the bed just seem to be endless. And then as as they're progressing, getting closer to climax, it's just all these metaphors, cutaway images of metaphors like a flower blooming, a rocket ship blasting, and it was also just so long. The scene, like it was like 2 minutes of just that, and they do
Mhm.
such a good job of landing those types of jokes. But also the thing that you know this movie does so well that all those other movies we mentioned, like epic movie, hero movie, whatever. I think not another teen movie does like a pretty. That's probably the most recent example of outside of the biopic where it is like trying to, you know, cover this genre. This movie does, and I think you're right. It isn't really a spoof movie, um, because the movie takes the genre seriously and it has all the normal beats of a detective movie, and this
Mhm.
is more of a film noir than the other two Naked Gun movies. But also, what I love about it is Frank isn't the idiot. Everybody is an idiot in these
Right.
movies. Like
Yes.
so the jokes play so well because it's not just like it's not a like Ace Ventura character where, this guy's the joke, this guy's carrying the weight. Everybody is doing like the police captain is doing the same bits that Frank is doing. He foams it at the mouth when they're at the blues club. Like
Yes.
everything like
Or
he
Nordberg constantly is messing up or getting
yes,
in like no mishap, and gets
exactly.
like dragged to
E
Detroit. Yeah.
So everybody is like
Yeah.
constantly just part of the joke, which makes it so much funnier.
And there's like that funny little bit where like they're at the crime scene and the sketch artist is like all horned up for Jane, and he's like sketching these sexy sketches. And then like Frank has a moment of like, this guy's weird. And he's like, and he makes that joke about like where he's like, get that guy who get, or he's like, what does he say? Like, get that guy who lives with those two other guys, where it's like,
Oh, they
I can't,
can't he can't they're on vacation together.
yeah,
Yes.
right. But like, so they're very clueless about that aspect. But then like also Frank, like, but Frank has this weird moment of clarity where he's like, this guy is crazy. Hey, let's go get that guy who lives with those other two guys, but has
Yes.
no like, and
Concept
it's
of that.
yeah, no concept of that. I love that that is like such a fun like twist right away. Like you get two jokes packed in there like right off of that, and it's like a throwaway, but it's like two layers of it that are just so well done. And you're totally right that everybody gets to have fun. And the cool thing I saw about the casting of like the first one, where it's like you look at it and you're like, Priscilla Presley, whoa.
It's
And
crazy.
um all these other sort of like dramatic actors, like even Leslie Nielsen had his origins in doing more dramatic stuff. You the reason they did that was that they wanted everything to be based off of dramatic timing and a dramatic cadence in the performances.
That makes
Not
sense.
You're not playing it, you're almost not playing anything to be funny. And that's the crazy thing, is that nobody's doing it. I mean, certainly there's like more crazy like gonzo stuff where it's like, you're a little more like physical or whatever, but nothing is necessarily played with the intent to be like comedic in the delivery. That's what makes it funny.
Right.
And that's what so many other of these movies don't understand and don't get. And this is really, really hard to pull off because it's a lot. I mean, the writing is doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
That's the problem. The writing has to be there. And oftentimes it's like, hey, let's improvise it. And the people just aren't good improvisers, or the setup of whatever they're improvising just isn't strong enough to, sustain that for an entire movie. Or they're just lazy on the writing, or they have to hurry it through and they're like, it doesn't matter. It's just a comedy. Like we'll just, add a goofy face or expression and like that will sell the joke. And it's like, no, like this is a total commitment to the bit. And that's why it works so effectively.
So with that being said, where are you at on this summer release, fourth Naked Gun happening in July of 2025? starring Liam Neeson. Where are you at?
Okay, so I'm like all in on it. I don't know if it's gonna be good. Like I sincerely, it could just be terrible. But I like that they understand, and I think they understand it. They might not, but that Liam Neeson was a serious actor, and then he, took over the action genre. But I think what they're doing is the same thing they did with Leslie Nielsen, where everyone's gonna play it straight, and if you do that and you have Liam Neeson at the centerpiece, and the writing's good enough, one, you'll think it's funny first and foremost because it's Liam Neeson doing all this stuff, but then you need the writing to be good enough to carry it past that, because that will be funny for the first like 10 to 15 minutes. But if it's just like, oh, Liam Neeson being this character is the joke, then it's not going to work. But if the writing's there, I think it's great casting.
Now I'll tell you this. This should get you amped up a little bit as well. I mean, you never know, but so two things. I do wish actually John Hamm had gotten the role.
Oh, he would have been great. Yeah.
He
we got balloons going.
Balloons showing up on the live stream.
That's their special effects budget.
I blew it all. I don't know if you saw Confess Fletch, but John Hamm was a good Fletch.
Okay, I haven't seen that one yet.
It's pretty good. But I just feel like with his comedic, he's a little more effortless in like moving between comedy and drama. And I think John Hamm would have been like an insane Frank Drebin. It just like it almost felt like it was like too perfect. And I do want to see what Liam Neeson can do with it, because I think if you're playing like a hardened cop, he also could do that fantastically. But John Hamm, I think, would have been really, really nice. Now, the thing that does give me quite a bit of excitement, or I don't know, makes me at least think it could be decent, is the people behind it. It's pretty nuts. So Akiva Schaffer is directing. Okay. So you're talking about a member of the Lonely Island here. Talking about Popstar and everything else. It's somebody who clearly understands what we're doing here. Now, the people behind like producing the story, there's a lot of names involved in terms of like who's written this, and I get that because that was the case even with the originals. Is Seth MacFarlane is producing and credited as one of the guys working on the story. David Zucker and Pat Proft are involved in some way in producing the story, it appears. And then Thomas Lennon and R. Ben Garant are also involved. So you've got the Reno 911 contingent, and then they've done a whole bunch of other stuff, tons of other stuff. But guys who understand, I think, what you're going for with this. And to me, that's a pretty well-rounded, incredible comedic, like 3 comedic worlds sort of coming together to make this. And that gives me some excitement about it, because I'll tell you the other thing too about Naked Gun that's crazy is these movies were no joke financially. The box office, the worldwide box office for all 3 are unbelievable. I never in a million years. First of all, The Naked Gun 2.5 was in the top 10 in 1991.
Dude, that's so funny you said that, because I literally today, coming back home from the football practice that ran long, which is why we're recording so late, was listening to the Big Picture Show, the podcast that Sean Fennessy and Amanda Dobbins do. They were doing a movie draft for 1991, and it was one of the ones that they mentioned in the blockbuster category as being the 10th highest grossing that year, and I was shocked.
Yeah. And then I think only 2 behind that was Hot Shots. So imagine going to the movie theater in 1991 and getting to see both of those movies.
I get
the thumbs up again. I don't know what's going on here with the live stream, but the box office.
I was going to say, Steve, real quick, I didn't realize, because I just went to the IMDb page, I assumed he was just playing Frank Drebin. He's playing Frank Drebin Jr., so he's going to be playing Leslie Nielsen's son.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And
I
Pamela
like that.
Anderson starring in it, I think, as the love interest.
Okay, yes, I did hear that. Yeah. I'm in. I am in. I'm, like, very much on the board with this. The Now the box office for these, the first one made $152 million.
Jesus.
The second one made $192 million worldwide, and then the third one still made 132
Holy
million.
God.
Like, and the budgets for these, like, the first one, the budget was, like, 12 million or something. So, I mean, they're timeless. They're for everyone. They've got a little something for everyone. Who wouldn't who wouldn't enjoy this? Who
Oh,
could possibly not like these?
I laughed out loud like 3 or 4 times in a way that I haven't laughed like that at a comedy in quite some time. Like I was very surprised with how funny this. I've seen this movie before. It's been such a long time because typically I either watch the third or the first one. If I'm gonna like watch one of these, they're all on Max right now, so it's very fun. Uh, but yeah, you're right. The timeliness, all of the jokes like hold up. I mean, obviously, George H.W. Bush and Barbara Bush are the president, but the premise is the president is about to introduce a new energy bill, and it's going to be, the oil lobbyists, the coal lobbyists are trying to stop him because he's going to be listening to this advisor who's going to say that the bill should focus on renewable energy, and that's still like obviously a
Yeah, talk about
major issue.
timeless.
Yeah, a major issue today.
Right.
But yeah, you don't need to know like
Who John
specific.
Sununu is.
Exactly. Yes, you don't need to know all these like little pop culture things from the late '80s, early '90s to find the jokes funny because the writing is just so evergreen and just hilarious throughout.
Yeah, and who's not, I mean, who's not gonna laugh when Leslie Nielsen is like, "I'm sure we can all approach this as the responsible adults that we are. Isn't that right, Mr. Poopy Pants?" What? Who doesn't laugh at poop jokes?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you laugh at that?
I mean, there's a scene where Leslie Nielsen and O.J. Simpson are dressed as mariachis playing in a mariachi band for like 3 minutes. It's great.
I'll tell you this. Since you mentioned OJ, and we did earlier, he's funny. He's a pretty good comedic actor. I don't look, man. He may have killed a couple people, but that doesn't mean he wasn't still good in Naked Gun. Okay,
Well, this is pre-murder though.
This is pre-murder. So, but it may have been percolating where he's like, I've got some urges here. Although he maybe didn't have the urges because he claims he just was going over. Apparently, he told a friend he was just going over to Nicole's house to scare her. So, I think that was in the OJ Made in America documentary where he was like, "Oh, I actually like confessed to like multiple friends over the years, and all the friends were like, I don't know what to do with this information, so I'm just going to tell them this documentary." But
oh my god.
So maybe he was just just a happy-go-lucky guy in 1991. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I will say, it's a real shame that he did what he did because he really is a pretty good comedic actor because he has that. He's so charismatic, and also that's probably partly why he got off. So
he has a bit of a baby face in this too. Like it's pretty wild to watch him. Hey Brandon, what's up, dude? Friend from college is shouting us out in the chat, which is wide open. Yeah, I was surprised. One of the first, I mean, I know Jim Brown is the first, big example of football player to transition into Hollywood stardom. But yeah, he probably would have, had all that stuff not happened, he probably would have had like a pretty solid career. I can't really see him being, the protagonist, but I could definitely see him, maybe getting a spinoff that doesn't do so well, or maybe taking over the franchise at some point. But yeah, because I believe the movie ends, the third one, I watched it today, ends with Frank finding out, because the whole thing is like he can't get his wife pregnant. Like he's slightly like impotent, and he's stressing about that because he's newly retired. Then he gets brought back in
How
to
old
go
is
under.
he? And it's like, I love that, just like the total nebulous like age
It
of
doesn't
Frank
even
Drebin.
matter what he is. It doesn't matter. But he finds out he's going to be a dad, which is now Liam Neeson's character, which is so incredible.
That's pretty awesome. That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. OJ, let me ask you this.
Do we want to do OJ right now?
Yeah, let's do a little. Let's get that out of the way.
Awesome.
Because this is definitely sort of the where were you at the time? Because I have more of a memory of like 9/11. If you were to ask me,
For sure. Yeah.
where were you on that day? But I do have this crazy memory because the OJ verdict date was October 3rd, 1995. And I have this very crazy memory that I was 7 years old and that I was watching. So I would have been in what, like first grade or something like that. I have some thought of seeing the verdict on the TV in elementary school. I don't know why I have that, and I don't know why my elementary school would have done such a thing, given that we were all like 7 years old, and it was a murder trial,
That was for
double
the
murder
that
trial.
was for the teachers.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. But that's I think where I was. I think I was in elementary school, like literally watching it as a 7-year-old. But I don't have like too many other. I don't have a ton of recollection of like my family being like super super into it, but I bet you they were. I have to imagine. I don't know if they talked to me much about it, obviously.
Yeah, my family was like, okay, so I remember the Bronco chase because I was watching basketball and the Bronco chase started. And it was the NBA finals. It was game 5.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was Knicks Rockets. They cut away, they put the game in a little box, and the Bronco chase. Like, can you imagine? I feel like that was gonna happen when LeBron won. Some breaking news that was gonna like I don't even know, like George W. Bush and Barack Obama, like, robbed a bank together, and like we're following their getaway car. Michelle Obama's driving them. Some insane breaking news that would have like taken away from the Cavs winning the championship or being in a small box and being like a footnote of that day.
Yeah,
Was
do you think like if it was like another like major terrorist attack where they were like, we interrupt the NBA finals to show you the White House is burning, and
right.
there's like this missile that like hit the White House, like, and the game, like there's not much that would have gotten me. If it was game 7, I would have been like, I can worry about that later.
Well, that was
Let me just watch game 7.
That was the thing that's so bizarre. So like, like a 9/11 where you're like, oh my God, like lives.
This affects everybody.
Yeah,
And
lives are impacted. Or even like, the White House, like the White House is burned down, like this attack happened. This was like a slow police chase on the 405 of a famous athlete. And like, I would have been furious that the broadcast was interrupted. Obviously, yeah, I know 2 people were murdered. So like that would have been like, but just like, why are we doing this like, why is the police chase nationally covered? Like, I get it. And I also am trying to keep it in my mind. What would that be like now? Like with Twitter, with Facebook, like with everyone
that
would
would
have
be like,
converged. It would
wouldn't
just
that be
melt.
like, yeah, it would be like if Tom Brady, maybe.
Michael Strahan was the example I thought of because he's like in the zeitgeist. He's transitioned fully
he's been an
over.
announcer.
He has done reality show. Like he's like very popular outside of football. So I was like, okay, who was somebody who was like good at football, but also like is now known largely outside of it. So like it's like I guess the Michael Strahan like slow police chase. But I
But
remember
that still
watching
wouldn't
it.
be like that still wouldn't be that had to be like the first indication that this was going to be something much crazier than just like a murder trial because it happened at a time when the 90s was a very sensationalist time,
Yeah.
and not that we aren't now, but it was a very like unique period of sensationalism and like people just like craving like that kind of stuff. And they're not really, and the internet still being like in its very early genesis, this was something that was on everybody's
Well, yeah, and
mind.
the documentary, you should definitely check it out. OJ Made in America covers this like way more in depth than obviously we're going to because it's like literally 10 hours long. But it was this also these convergence of you're a year or two removed from the Rodney King LA race riots, the verdict where the police acquitted. So that's a big thing. It's a super famous black athlete whose ex-wife just got murdered. And so now you're like, oh, he's obviously implicated. The police are chasing him. So it's like this convergence of all these things that were very hot button issues in not
Oh
only
yeah.
but
It,
the US.
it
So
like encapsulated everything about
encapsulated
America.
everything about America because it was,
Yes.
like are they going to take down this innocent like black athlete like who you probably at the time thought presumed innocent, and then the trial happens and my every day I came home from school and my dad was on the phone with my cousin. I just saw my cousin at my sister's wedding. It's my dad's cousin, so I first cousin once removed. He and her talked every single day about the trial. I remember every day I come home, it was court TV or whatever, wherever it was being broadcast. I just remember like it was all that was on my house TV for like 8 months. And
Hmm.
so I was just like, and I was very invested that because of the Naked Gun movies, OJ couldn't have done it. He has,
Nordberg, no.
he has to be innocent. And I was devastated, or I was so excited when he was not guilty. I then watched documentaries about it and was like, oh my God, boy, was I wrong.
It's crazy too that first of all, Brandon, you need to explain what you mean by you saw the end of Joe Camel in school. What that
I
is.
think the demise of the Joe Camel mascot.
Like the cigarette mask.
I like to think that they brought because I think Brandon went to Centerville. I like to think that they brought Joe Camel and like executed him in Centerville, and
Right.
was like smoking his bad kids.
Right, exactly. Yeah, see what happens. It's so crazy too, because like OJ just died. So but even up until then, and for however long now after, it's like he's still like there are still OJ jokes. There are still OJ jokes. There's still like this version of him that's like in the zeitgeist for our generation, and beyond. Like not maybe not the younger kids, but like our generation for sure,
Yeah,
and older. And he was just this like magnet of vitriol and opinion, and like we said, he encapsulated everything about America. So like a lot of people were like feeding their thoughts about the country and where they thought things should be, or you know, there's a lot of dark stuff attached to how people viewed the trial, but then there's also like, I mean, it really just encapsulated probably like the absolute sheer insanity of the United States in a lot of ways. I guess
yeah,
that's the only like easy way to put it, is that like no matter which way you kind of like slice it up, there's a part of him in that trial that just was like a great example of like how utterly insane the United States is. And um like you said, like there's so much heavy meaning behind that trial. And like I'm not going to unpack any of that cuz like who am I to do that? But that is why it was so big, and why the entire country cared about it then, cared about it 30 years later.
yeah,
It's like such a, and I don't think, I mean it's arguably the most influential event of at least the 90s. I mean, other than maybe like Bill Clinton
Bill
and
Clinton
Monica
impeachment.
Lewinsky.
Yeah, I would say those were the two, and that was, and probably the LA race riots. early 90s. So like those three things kind of, yeah, because the Clinton impeachment was like 97, 98. So yeah, it was all of it was and it was the epitome of the US too, though. All of it is in a courtroom. A
And
courtroom
like
broadcasted.
and the sensationalist aspect of it.
Yes.
Like, and the jokes. Like, I mean, just like
Hmm.
the fodder that it was.
I remember
Um
the dancing Itos on SNL. It was the dancing Judge Itos that were like 4 or 5 people dressed like Judge Ito dancing,
that is
and
so nuts.
it's crazy. Like
That is nuts.
yeah,
I couldn't I mean, I guess I could very easily imagine that happening today. I mean, I do think a lot about like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial as being like not even close to the same level, but very much a similar type of thing where it was Johnny Depp was this tremendous name in Hollywood, an actor that everybody loved, and then all of a sudden you start to peel back the layers and there's like this darkness
yeah,
hidden there. And then that trial represents a lot too because of what like how we view like celebrity, how we view women, how we view like I mean it actually really is a nice parallel because it does encapsulate about a lot about America as well. But the way people were so attached to that trial as it was going on and talking about it and making TikToks about it and everybody kind of being like an armchair legal expert,
right, right.
which I'm sure with OJ was the case. I mean, I would just kill. I would love to get like an oral history of just like what, and I mean, maybe the documentary does it. The oral history from like even just like normal Americans of like when the glove happened
Oh, how they felt. Yeah, there was just a story.
on both sides of people who were like, I'm adamant he's innocent and I'm adamant that he's guilty.
So there was a thing that just came out like right after his death that the reason the glove didn't fit not only was because it had been blood soaked and so it shrank a little bit. It still probably would have fit him though. He stopped taking a certain medicine that keeps your body from inflammation, and so when he stopped that, his hands got swollen, and they no
Yes.
longer. He was advised to stop taking it because it would
Yeah.
no his gloves would no longer fit.
Oh my
And I
god.
would say the two best sources, things to watch if you're interested at all in, the OJ trial, everything around that was obviously OJ Made in America. It's an incredible documentary. I've watched it. And then American Crime Story.
I've seen that.
Really,
Yeah.
really good. Like
That was
it's
great.
you get to hear oh my god, Ross from Friends. What's his name? Oh, why can't I think of his name? He plays Kardashian though. He plays
Oh,
the
David Schwimmer.
David Schwimmer. You get to hear him call. There's a supercut somebody just did when OJ died. He calls him Juice probably like 150 times in 10 episodes. So you get to see him. You
Say
get to see
juice a
John
lot, yeah.
Travolta be Robert Shapiro. You get to see Courtney Vance be an amazing Johnny Cochran.
Also, you get like, is that like the last thing we're gonna get from Cuba Gooding Jr.?
Probably, yeah, based on everything that's happened. Cuba Gooding Jr. plays OJ.
And he's
Um,
great.
he's so good, and Edie Falco is great. Sterling K. Brown, I fell in love with him as Christopher Darden, who's on the state side with Sarah Paulson, who's obviously amazing, who is Linda Tripp. So it's just like
It's tremendous. It really
it's
is a
so good.
fantastic.
My
Aren't
wife
they?
and
They're
I,
doing the one about the Clippers.
they are, yes,
That
yes, they
looks
are. With
nuts.
David Sterling comes out in like 2 or 3 weeks. I can't wait. Or Donald Sterling, it comes out in like 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah, it looks wild. Somebody said it should be called Losing Time. I think that's a great title for it. But I have a great memory of my wife and I. We would when we had our apartment, it was our we had a newborn, and it was our oldest William. And we get at the time Pizza Hut. We're very broke, but they had a great deal for this garlic knot pizza, where it was cheese garlic knots was the
Mhm.
crust, and we'd get that was like our little extravagant thing. We'd get that, and we watch each new episode when they come out each week of American Crime Story.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but it's phenomenal. It gives you a lot of it shows you a lot of the missteps that the state, like the defense made,
Mhm.
and like why they ended up losing the trial. I think that was one of the cool like insights that provided.
Yeah, and it's also an interesting and compelling example of how precarious these can be. That nothing's ever set in stone with any of these trials, no matter what, because again, you're going against a jury of your peers, and you're influencing a judge, and you're working on, and there's so many other things that go into it, but yeah, it's just always landmines, no matter what the trial is. It's never a done deal, no matter what you think. And at the end of the day, we don't know. That's the crazy thing. Is like, I mean, like, yeah, he probably did it. I mean, how, you don't cut your finger and bleed that much on your car right after your wife is killed, but and there's lots of other evidence that would
I
suggest
I
he
did
was
see
involved. But
I did see a thing about how they think his son did it, and OJ was covering for his son because his
I
son
think
was
I've
like
heard that.
23,
Yeah, I've heard that too, I
and
think.
his son called him several times that night, and OJ was supposed to be traveling, so like it was a little bit out of the blue. And before OJ returned, before the Bronco chase, uh, the law firm he called, he actually called to get a lawyer for his son.
Hmm.
And then by the time he returned, that changed.
His story changed so many times throughout the years that it's just so impossible to, I mean, it's just gone into the ether
Yeah.
now,
I would say just based on his past history of like horrible physical abuse
That's
to
also
Nicole
true, is
Brown, I'm not
right.
going to really give somebody the benefit of the doubt that
Yeah,
like he
yeah,
probably was the murderer.
I don't, yeah, I definitely don't wanna paint him as, like, because I feel like maybe I'm falling into that trap of, like, that's why people love him so much, as he is a charismatic, like,
No, I
football
think
star.
I honestly think you painted it really well. That like you painted it as this is probably one of the reasons he wasn't convicted was that he is so charismatic. He was a famous athlete. He was a very attractive person, and so it probably made it difficult to convict him when
Mhm,
you have the like you had several pieces from the trial like okay, the glove doesn't fit. Well, that's the glove we know the murderer wore, so if that doesn't fit him, how could he have done it? He couldn't have been the murderer. And
mhm,
this DNA evidence, this the racist cop didn't collect the DNA evidence properly when at the beginning of like when we were understanding what DNA evidence was. He
mhm.
had it out to get him. And so there's and you're coming off the Rodney King stuff and the race riots and like a bunch of stuff that is going to give you a jury that is might be in a position to more likely believe that OJ didn't do it. So I think you painted that like really well, and you weren't at any point like, I don't know, man. He's like pretty funny in Naked Gun, so he's like probably like I don't give a shit what he did.
Yeah, I love Nordberg too much to care about anything else.
Yeah. So-
I did watch an interview with Leslie Nielsen where it was like, a press junket for Spy Hard.
oh, okay,
And
yeah,
the interviewer just flat out asked him, because it was in like 1995 or something,
right.
asked him, he was like, "What did you think? Like, what did you ever see anything on the Naked Gun set that would make you think?" As if he was just like, "Hey, Leslie, I'm gonna murder my wife."
Yeah,
But it was really strange because he Leslie Nielsen, is in his later career, he was just always like a jokester. He always had like a fart machine that he would take places,
right.
and he was like always funny, and it was just like hard to watch this nice Canadian man have to like explain how, like, well, in 1988, yeah, I mean, OJ wasn't I didn't see anything, he was a very normal, great guy, but that, I don't know. It's like, who am I? Because I think it was like right after the verdict.
Oh
So I
god.
mean, it's like emotions are really high.
At least he wasn't like, so you guys gonna make another one now that he's like good?
I don't know. The interview didn't finish, so I don't even know. I'd have to pull up the full press junket interview of
So
Spy
that
Hard.
shows you even, nothing has changed with press junket questions in 29 years.
No,
They ask the stupidest,
I
like
can't. I have a hard time watching
lowest
press
hanging
junket
fruit.
interviews, man. I have
I
a
hate him
really
so
hard time
much.
watching them. I there are a few interviewers that I like that know how to play it and
Well,
like
yeah,
have
and
a
now there's so many that are just influencers who are like, I'm like, I got this because I have a big, Twitch following or Instagram following. I'm not a journalist in any capacity, and I'm just going to ask you, a question I know is just going to set you off so I can get a reaction.
that, or I'm just gonna ask you something about like Marvel because if you were even remotely involved or
Dude.
something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was strange. It was strange to see. It was almost as strange as watching Leslie Nielsen in the Poseidon Adventure, which I watched recently, because he plays the captain, and he's great in it, but it's so funny because he plays it straight, obviously, and you just are always expecting like,
You're
the
waiting for
shoe
the
to
joke.
drop. You're like,
Yeah.
where's the
Yeah.
punchline? But there isn't one, but he does play the part where the boat gets hit with the wave very effectively. There's like this scene where he's on the bridge with the other crew members and they see the wave coming, and he just like puts up his hands to like guard against the wave coming. But like you can see it in his face that he's very like terrified. And that I'm like, that's why you're Frank Drebin, baby. Cause like you can play the
Right.
emotion. Which
I
actually
like
Poseidon
Poseidon
Adventure is
Adventure.
great, by the way.
Yeah, I like that, and I like the original, of course, but the remake I thought was pretty good too with Kurt Russell
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, remake was good. The original is killer.
and Johnny Drama's in that.
Is he really in the
Yeah,
remake?
yeah, he's like playing poker with him and joins the group and dies almost immediately. Spoiler. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, I don't know if I've seen the remake, but anyway, um, yeah, no, let's see here. I think. Oh well, okay. So we talked a lot about OJ, but I always feel like it gets super lost in this that Priscilla Presley is the leading lady. That to me, because I think at the time she was dating like a screenwriter or something like somebody involved in Hollywood,
Can you
and it
imagine
led.
dating the woman who was married to Elvis?
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, she's had a number of like I mean she never remarried, but she's had like different like lovers, I guess, over the years. But yeah, I mean, talk about I mean, in not too dissimilar like as OJ is just like in talking about like American like Mount Rushmore like celebrity icons. Elvis is one
Yeah.
of them.
I was just at my sister's wedding in Vegas. Wasn't an Elvis wedding. It was overseen by Elvis at a chapel. My boys dressed as Elvis ring bearers.
Dude, how did we not? I totally like didn't realize that was why you were going to Vegas.
Oh
Was for your
yeah.
sister's wedding. I didn't
Yes.
realize
I'll
that.
send you pictures. Yes, it was
Oh,
great.
that's so funny.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So he's a cult. I mean, in a different way, I would say, but she has an aura about her because yeah, she was friggin' Elvis's wife, and now she met him when she was quite young, and so there's a lot of that. And I
There's
do need
some
to see the
things
movie
there.
Priscilla. I do need to see that.
I do too.
But
Yeah, it's streaming now, so I gotta get on that.
yeah, but and I think she's had some opinions on that, but I I'm just always like, what a crazy smattering of people that are involved in this this franchise that you got like, and she's so good in it. She completely gets
Yeah.
what the point is and plays the like love interest well, but also can like handle herself comedically and provides like that light touch. She's good in all three of them. Um, and it's just like what a wild like spark that she had in three Naked Gun movies, and then
Yeah.
like also was married to Elvis.
Yeah, it's the Priscilla movie. She actually worked with, I think she gave Sofia Coppola the like approval, like stamp of approval. Like she assisted in that.
Yeah, didn't like I thought some other family members had problems with it, but yeah, she
Probably the ones that weren't underage when they had to marry Elvis.
correct. Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, I think she did, like you said, consult on it at the very least to like get it
but yet she like holds her own. Like she honestly seems like like if it wasn't Priscilla Presley and I didn't like know who the person was, I would be like, oh, was this somebody who was like a famous like Oscar actress from like the 70s and 80s that it's funny that she's playing this in this comedy, but like playing it straight. She's
Right.
like she's like that good. Like she like holds her own. Uh she is a very good, believable love interest. And I love that she's in all three of them. Like I could see like we got her for the first one, and she's like, I'm not coming back for
She
this
came
shit.
back for all of
She came
them.
back for all fucking three of them. It's incredible.
I do love that. Yeah, that she had to finish the arc
Yeah.
of Jane.
Dude, what if she comes back for the fourth one as the mom?
I would imagine they would have to ask her. How
I
would
hope
you
they're
not
just like,
ask
we're gonna
her?
give you $5 million for like a day.
To get even just a scene,
Yeah, just a scene would be
just to goof
like
around.
I would love a really ridiculous scene with Liam Neeson talking to his mommy.
Oh my god, yeah, like visiting his mommy.
Yeah.
Why not?
It would be so great.
Why not? Um, it is crazy that she was in all three of them. And I like the continuity too. I mean, you get everybody. I mean, the whole core is all together.
They're all back. Yeah, it's
Because
great.
even George Kennedy is tremendous as
He's
like the
so
straight
good.
man,
Oh my
but he
god.
gets a lot to do in all three of them too.
I would definitely argue he's probably even dumber than like he might be the dumbest of the group. Like he does some of the like silliest gags where you're just like, this is the captain? What?
Yeah, and I do like. I love the line again. That crime. I keep coming back to it, but that initial crime scene in Smell of Fear
It's so good.
it probably has one of the greatest ratios of jokes ever. And he goes, Frank goes, "Oh, Ed, congratulations! I heard." Or no, he just goes, "Ed, I heard Edna's pregnant again." And Frank goes, "And if I find the guy who did it,"
Yes.
it's great. And then he gets his ass beat by that henchman too when he's taking off his badge. It's great. It's great. All right, real quick, what are your like your three Leslie Nielsen movies?
Okay, original Naked Gun. It's like it's so good. It's so funny. It holds up really well. I love Airplane. It again, it has so many great jokes. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is in it, which is just stunning. Um,
Oh yeah.
of Ernest Learns Basketball fame, which is a '90s movie.
Oh my god.
And then Spy Hard. Spy Hard's great. I think I saw probably Spy Hard first, honestly, as a kid, and then I was like, "Oh, this is funny." And I think my dad then showed me. I didn't see any of these in theaters. This was like, these were all Blockbuster for us.
Spy Hard's great because Weird Al does the intro song and his head explodes.
Right.
And I always because I am obsessed with I am now, and then as a kid I was obsessed with Weird Al. Weird Al was my icon.
What if
As a kid.
what if he has an OJ incident where like you just see like
That would be probably one of the most devastating things that could ever
Weird
happen.
Al is like in a Honda Civic, like going down like the Jersey Turnpike.
That would be tough. That would require a lot of like inner strength to
He's a
get
really
past
nice
that.
guy. I don't think I mean, I only talked to him for like an afternoon, but he was also like the nicest to everybody around.
You
So
talked to Weird Al? Did we talk about
yeah,
this?
yeah, we talked about this years ago when I was the um on the Emmys the year it was Breaking Bad's last year. They won Best Drama. And I was the music producer's assistant for 2 weeks for while he was in town. And so like the first week, basically what they do is they write all the music that is going to be the intro, outros, all the when they're going through the categories, and then they kind of record it, they write it, and then they go to like the actual recording studio. Some of it's pre-recorded, but then some of it is they practice and they perform live on stage. So one of the collaborators was Weird Al, and so
Hmm.
I was in like the drummer from Toto, his basement studio,
Hmm.
and this producer, and then Weird Al was there for like 5 or 6 hours, and it was just
Crazy.
like five of us, and then when we went over, we were over at Capitol Records, like the famous record place.
Hmm.
We were in the studio where Sinatra, the Beatles, all recorded. We were there really late most nights, and my boss, the producer, was like, "Hey, like John's over in the other studio. You want to go like hang out with him?" I was like, "Sure." It was John Mayer, and so like they just weed smell everywhere, but we hung out with him for like 3 hours while he just like took requests and tried new songs.
Just jamming out.
It was super. It was very surreal. It was very fun though.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was great.
I don't know if you've ever told me that you
It was one of the
jammed out and got
best.
high with John Mayer, and then also hung out with Weird Al for 5 hours.
Dude, it was like one of the best. It was definitely probably the best job I ever had because everybody was so nice. And then, like you make no assumptions with like any of these industry people. Like you're just like, I just hope they're nice. And
Hmm.
the guy I worked for was beyond that. He was so nice. But it's like 3 hours till the show and he's gonna be on stage. So I'm just gonna sit in his dressing room and watch from there. And he's like, what are you doing during the show? I'm like, oh, just be here. Like, if you need anything, like, let me know. I'm on a walkie, or like, I'll just be here for like when you need to go home after the after party. And he's like, well, here, take these. Like, you're married. And he gave me tickets and he gave me after party tickets.
Hmm.
So I called my wife and she Ubered downtown to the Staples Center and we walked the red carpet really fast. And then we were like 15 rows back center, got to watch that, and then we went to the like governor's ball thing after, and we sat right next to Mark Ruffalo, and it was awesome.
Wow, man, that's really
Yeah.
cool. That was Weird Al who gave you those tickets.
No, the producer, my guy who's my
Oh,
boss,
okay. Hmm.
he gave them to me because they give, and he didn't live in L.A., so like all of his family or like his wife and stuff, they're all like on the East Coast. So he's like, I don't have anybody that's gonna use. He's just gonna go to waste. Like you should use these.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
that
great.
seems like a much different experience than like your Oscars experience.
Oh
A
yeah,
little
yeah.
bit. The
My
film's
Oscars
a little
boss
bit
was
different than
terrible. Yeah,
that. That's awesome.
yeah,
That's
it was cool.
cool. Those are some really cool like memories to be like, yeah, I chilled with Mark Ruffalo for a bit.
It was fun.
I got high with John Mayer. Do you think
That was cool.
do you think he'd remember you?
He probably wouldn't remember me, but he did. Like I saw him the next day, and then like a couple of days, and he knew my name every time. I was like, oh,
Dude, get him on the show. Get
that's like
his ass
crazy
on the
that you
show.
even like remember. Like I don't expect like, you're like super famous, and you probably have so many people who come and bother you for stuff. Like, yeah,
Yeah, work your connection. Get his ass on the show.
I should try to see. I can email the guy because he was like legitimate friends with John Mayer.
Okay, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to be doing.
Okay, I'll reach out to
Yeah.
him.
I think my only different one that I would give for Leslie Nielsen would be Scary Movie 3
Oh
when he's the president.
yes, yes,
Because the thing about Scary Movie 3 and 4 is that you get the return of like some of the classic spoof guys. So David Zucker directed Scary Movie 3. And I believe Pat Proft also, yeah, wrote on it. And then of course you had Sean Wayans and Craig Mazin, which is also super nuts that he was a writer on that. Because now he's known for like Chernobyl and The Last of Us. But that was what he was involved in. And Scary Movie 3 was like a return to form. Not that I disliked Scary Movie 1 and 2, and the Wayans do continue to kind of like hold the torch for spoof movies or parody stuff, but Scary Movie 3 and 4 to maybe a lesser extent were both fantastic.
Mhm.
I thought they were great. They were just tremendous. They were more in the spoof mold of like like a Spy Hard or like Loaded Weapon,
Right.
a little bit of Hot Shots, but you know Naked Gun is a little more is a unique in that case. In that, again, I don't know if you could classify it as a spoof, more or less. It's like Now, Police Squad, the show, is like a police procedural. And so there's elements and certainly influences, but like I do think they stand on their own where they're not necessarily like they're not as dependent on the genre or the like, you know, plot, like not plot, but like the sight gags of, or like things you recognize, I guess,
Right.
for lack of a better term. Audience participation in terms of, you know, how into signs are you? You know, that was like Scary Movie 3. So,
Yes.
you know, so uh, now Police Squad, for anyone who doesn't know, certainly needs to find the show either online or buy the Blu-ray because it's great. The show predates the movies,
Yep.
and that's what Police Squad is.
That's why they call themselves the Police Squad.
The nondescript, just like random police squad that sometimes has federal jurisdiction.
Right. Yes.
But have you ever watched the show? Have you ever watched Police Squad?
I've seen only a couple episodes.
Yeah, it's
not
great.
like a lot. I loved it though.
Yeah, it's just as good. I mean, the gag where they do the freeze frame for every credits of at the end of every episode, they do a freeze frame, but it's actually not frozen. They all freeze, but
right.
It's not, yeah. So it's fun to watch them sit there for like 45 seconds trying to hold it. But it's great. So if you're like really hankering for more Naked Gun beyond the movies, you get the show Police Squad. I don't know if I have. I mean, okay. Real quick, Robert Goulet also is an insanely cast villain. The same way that like wasn't who was the villain in the first one?
I'll look it up.
Wasn't it Ricardo Montalban?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's pretty wild. And I believe it was because of like a connection that he had through somebody he worked with on like Wrath of Khan, because it was Paramount. Because it was a Paramount movie. So I just love that, and I just love that he like certainly got it as well.
Right.
Who's the villain in Naked Gun 3? Rocco. Oh, it's Fred Ward.
It's Fred Ward and Anna Nicole Smith.
That's right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. This would be a good one to do around the Oscars.
Yeah. It's
obviously
perfect Oscar movie.
Okay. But yeah, so on top of, you have O.J. Simpson and Priscilla Presley, also you just toss in like Robert Goulet, also being like a great villain in this, and
so
like
good
having tremendous comedic timing. It's just it's so crazy. I mean, these are such singularly unique movies that, again, I hope the reboot goes well, but it's hard. There's a reason why like these don't really exist, because who else can make them? It's the same way that you don't see like it's the same way the golden age of the Simpsons first 9 to 10 seasons can't be replicated, or why Seinfeld or 30 Rock is what it is. The Naked Gun is like a singular vision with talent that just, and they were able to get the most out of everybody, but then like Leslie Nielsen being like this rock and anchor, and somebody who was like, I mean, he was a guy who brought like fart jokes a fart machine to like late night shows. He only cared about being silly. And that is a really unique and cool trait for somebody who made it in Hollywood, that he only cared about just being as silly as he could. And you don't get that much. No. Because even like, I love Ben Stiller and I love Will Ferrell and I love Vince Vaughn, but those guys have drifted the other way, where now they want to be more serious. They might want to be behind the camera. They, Jim Carrey was maybe the closest sort of guy for a long time, but but like it shines through differently because Leslie Nielsen in his personal life, it would appear, was pretty silly. So, I mean, again, I don't know the details necessarily of his whole life, other than, the little bit you get here and there. I don't know exactly. So I could be way off, but from what you see of him, he just seems like this very nice, silly Canadian man, and it's like that's different on screen, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Even when you're talking about a guy like Jim Carrey or like Ben Stiller when he would be like Zoolander and stuff like that. Like
What's so hard about it though is like all the guys you've mentioned have been, I would say the closest would be Robin Williams, probably, who had like the care of the comedy was the big thing and not the he had a little bit, I don't think it was maybe intentional, but a little bit of like, look at me, I'll be the main joke, the main attraction. But all those guys you mentioned all want to be the main attraction. And like, I get it. Like, who wouldn't want to be? Like, you're getting paid $15-20 million. You have all the pressure of the studio to be the main attraction, to be the main laugh. But, Leslie Nielsen, understands. I'm sure he would probably love to have been paid that money. But he understood, like, if I play it this way, it's going to be so much better than if I'm if I demand to be the one who's the goofy idiot.
Mm-hmm.
If we're all
right, yeah, like only I can be the guy getting the laughs. Only
right, so he might have a scene where he is playing it like the most straight of everybody else, and he only has 2 or 3 jokes, whereas OJ is going to get 5 or 6, or Priscilla is going to get 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 jokes, and he's going to be the odd man out on for 10 minutes of the movie, but he didn't really seem to care. Whereas I think some of these other guys, you'll hear some stories that you might be a little bit disappointed with them, where you're like, oh, they're kind of a little bit of an asshole about some of this stuff, where it's like they got to make sure they get theirs, especially as the comedies became a bit more like improvisational.
It was always like one-upping each other. Now,
exactly.
Yeah, like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly had a pretty good relationship in that regard.
Yeah, they did.
But I think also you hear a lot of, so many comedians are just like the most tortured people off screen.
For sure.
And I don't get the sense that like Leslie Nielsen was that like he was like this golden weirdo.
Right.
In a way. And maybe that's like what you needed for that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with a different guy.
Yeah.
Leading it, to see like what that does to the dynamic. But I mean, hey man, I'll take another Naked Gun, especially if you're going to release in theaters in July.
Oh my God. Yes.
Like, sign me the hell up.
Yeah. That sounds like a good time.
Okay. That's it. I love that we get to do another Naked Gun movie though after this. So that is Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. They don't even miss a chance to make a joke in the title of the movie. And I love it so much. And I can't wait to do the 33 and a third. But for now, that wraps up episode 160 of Revenge of the 90s. Rate, review, subscribe. You know the drill, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you guys